Welcome to School Zone, the show all about your local districts here in the White Mountains. I'm your host, John Larsen. Today we have Mrs. Charla Cosgray, who is our new elementary principal at Linden. And I'm really excited to have you today.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy and school just got finished and things are crazy, and you agreed to come, and I appreciate that very much.
No problem.
So before we get started, love to know a little bit about you.
Okay.
Tell me about yourself. Tell me, where you're from and some of your experiences, and I'd really like to know about your education.
Okay, nice. So I've been married for 25 years this year. We have 2 boys. They're both grown. We raised them in Vail, Arizona, so just southeast of Tucson. They both are graduates of the Vail School District. When my oldest was in 1st grade, I started volunteering in his classroom. And I thought, oh, this is, kind of cool. I like this. And there was a student with special needs in his class, and he needed a one-on-one aid. And so the principal at the time approached me and asked me, would I be interested in it? I was there already, so I might as well get paid to be there. So I started working with the student one-on-one. And I ended up working with him through 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I worked with him one-on-one. And during that time, I was approached by the principal, and he said, you're pretty good at this. I think you should maybe go to school and become a teacher. And so I thought, yeah, I'll do that. And so I went through Prescott College, and I used the teachers I was working with in the Vail School District as my mentors. Graduated from Prescott College, and I started teaching kindergarten in the Sunnyside School District, which is in South Tucson. And I taught kindergarten for 7 years. I thought I was going to teach it for a year and then teach something else. I really loved teaching kindergarten. So I taught kindergarten for 7 years, and then moved up with a class to their 1st grade, which was amazing, probably the best experience ever. And then it was an opportunity arose where I could, with the district, write curriculum. And so I thought, yeah, that's something I really want to do. So I started helping write math curriculum for K-2 at the district level. At the same time, I was going to school to get my master's degree with Grand Canyon University. And after we wrote the curriculum, we decided that coaches would be necessary to implement the new curriculum. So I became a math instruction coach for K-2 at 13 elementary schools. Yeah, it was a lot of work. There were a lot of teachers, but it was really fun because I got to go in and see teachers who were seasoned and had been doing this for a really long time and wanted to learn. And we got to work together. We would do model lessons. We would write lessons together. And I also got to work with brand new teachers. So I got to really be a part of their foundational skill of being a good teacher. So that was really fun. When our youngest child graduated high school, my husband and I had always vacationed here in the mountains. And we knew that eventually this is where we wanted to be, retirement, So my youngest was graduating high school. I knew that the coaching position was ending because of budget constraints. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to try it somewhere else. I'm going to try to go up to the mountain. And at the time, I accepted a position in Round Valley. So I taught 1st grade in Round Valley for 1 year. And then my husband accepted a position here in Show Low. So I said, well, I'll move over to Show Low. So last year I taught 2nd grade at Linden, and this year I took on the principal position. Great.
Well, I'll say that we're excited to have you in that position.
I'm excited too.
And we're excited about the potential and the opportunity for growth. Couple of questions that came to mind. First of all, I graduated from GCU too. So,
okay.
So that's awesome that we have something there in common.
Yeah.
So I really am impressed by the opportunity you had to work with teachers who were just starting out, all the way
All the way,
to
yeah.
teachers who I assume were close to retirement.
Yes, I worked with several who that was their last year of teaching.
Yeah,
And-
that's a great opportunity, great chance to learn about people and
Yeah.
learn about different phases of people's careers and whatnot, which I assume has helped you or will help you
Oh,
with your
absolutely.
principalship.
And just with working with different people, moving to a new school district, I mean, I've done it now twice in the past 3 years. Moving to a new school district, you kind of encounter all of that all at once. So, like when I went to Round Valley, I was the new girl. Everybody there had been there for a very long time. And, you just have to, okay, here I am, step into your position and, be yourself and do your job the way that you can do it.
That takes a lot of confidence. A couple other questions. One, are your children in college or graduates of?
I have one that is in college currently. He is doing a drafting program for teeny tiny parts on great big machines. It's something that I could never fathom. The other one currently works at a Sarco, the mine down in South Tucson. He is a machine. He repairs the big machines, the great big shovels that are like the size of apartment buildings, and he's also a welder.
Great. The reason I bring that up, not to be nosy, but I found that parents who are educated usually pass that trade on to their
Yes.
children.
Well,
And I
I'll
find
say,
that to be so important.
yeah, they both really took off with the robotics program that they were in the Vail School District. My husband actually was their mentor at the Vail School District for 11 years. And when we moved up here, that was the one thing he looked for. He wanted to find a robotics program. So he's actually a mentor at the high school this year.
Great.
Yeah.
Super. That is great. One other thing I wanted to point out, I noticed, you started, if we want to say you started as a volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it led to a career. How cool is that?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And I feel like where I got to start was such an amazing place to be. I mean, the Vail School District was the #1 school district at the time. And to have my foundation there, I mean, when I think of how I teach and how I lead, that's where my foundation came from.
Great. I would be remiss, I think, if I didn't tell people, we're always looking for volunteers.
Absolutely.
And you never know where that leads.
Absolutely.
And,
we have people all the time at Linden who, parents come in. We have parents who come on a weekly basis. And I mean, we have a parapro now who I keep pushing, we can get you in a program. We can get you in a program.
Great, which leads me to my next thought. Somebody mentored you.
Absolutely.
It sounds like your principal down there saw your potential and your abilities and said, hey, why don't you try to do this?
Absolutely.
And so I hope that you're able to do that
Oh, yeah.
with some of the folks. That's just great. I just think that's wonderful. Thanks. I appreciate you sharing that. So everybody wants to know about letter grades. It's a depending on your outlook, it's either a popular thing to talk about or it's not a popular thing to talk
Absolutely.
about. Tell us about the letter grades at Linden.
Well, last year we were operating under a D letter grade. And if you have any information about that, you know that that grade is based on the previous year's assessments. So last year, the teachers at Linden, they really buckled down. They really worked very hard getting their kids with that information and having those skills really solid. And letter grades came out last month for last year. So we're currently a high C. We are a breath away from a B. It is so close, it's not even funny. But we are really working this year. This year, we're continuing to work on that. And one of the things that we put into place last year was our new curriculum with Beyond Textbooks. And teachers really stuck to that with fidelity. They were sure to go through the program and learn it. And now we have teachers who know the program, and we're adding pieces to it. So the piece that we added this year is what we call WIN, what I need now. And that's for our math interventions. So at the end of a math unit, every classroom does the assessment and they grade it. Any kid who hasn't mastered that standard, the following week, they go to a reteach group. So they get some more teaching, because not every kid learns at the same rate, at the same time, with the same teacher. So a new teacher, an extended amount of time might help them further along. Then they reassess and we see how they are at the end of that.
So is that something you implemented?
It's actually part of the Beyond Textbooks framework.
Okay.
And
So it's something that's expected district-wide?
exactly. Last year we didn't have quite as many teachers as we have this year. It's really hard to do when you only have one first grade teacher, one third grade teacher. You kind of need two to do it very well. We do have one second grade teacher and one fifth grade teacher. So what we did is I actually work with the second grade class, and I take kids at that time, and our music, PE, and art teacher, she takes some fifth grade kids at that time. So we're figuring it out with the people that we have.
Okay, great. Is it fair to ask what the weaknesses are in our grade? Why we're a C and not a B?
Well, you know, here's the truth of it. There's not a lot of diversity out at Linden. And one of the things that is counted in your letter grade is you get points for, say, minorities or special ed students or who have growth. Well, you have to have 10 in each category, 10 students. We only have 180 students total. So we don't have 10 of any minority group to get us those points. So we really have to rely on the strengths of the students' knowledge.
Okay, okay. I know that math is a big deal. Tell me about, continue to tell me a little bit more about your math there at Linden.
Well, we're really focusing math. Our goal this year, school-wide, is for after students have taken that assessment at the end of their win time, so their reteach time, that 85% or more of our students are meeting or exceeding that standard. And that's really what we're pushing for. I mean, we have a big display in the hallway where we're keeping track of our data, so it's not hidden anywhere. It's out in the open where everybody can see it. The students take responsibility for it, and the teachers really are pointing it out to the students. Look, here's where we are. Here's where we really need to be. What do we need to do to get there?
Okay. How are we faring in math? What's holding us back from doing well? What do you find the kids struggle with?
Well, you know what? We're actually doing pretty well now. We just did our first benchmark right before fall break, and we looked at the benchmark scores from last year this time and benchmark scores from this year this time, and in both ELA and math they're up from last year.
Good.
So, but I really feel like foundations, number sense, being able to work with a number and being able to pull it apart and know that a 7 is a 5 and a 2, you know, and be able to manipulate those numbers. That's really important at the primary level, because once you get into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, you're doing so much more work with those numbers that if you don't have that foundational skill, it's harder. It's harder to approach it. So I'm a big proponent of what is called number talks, and it's a lot of mental math and presenting kids with equations that they can do mentally and teaching them strategies to break those numbers apart, put those numbers back together, and talk about why they did it that way and how it worked for them.
Great. So I have found that when my kids get in high school, I begin to lose the ability to help them with their math. But I think about them in elementary school and the relative ease, for me, of course, as an adult, in being able to help them with their math. And so do you find that it's so important that parents, you know, when the kids come home, hey, what have you got for homework? You know, let's take a look at it. Let's get it done and help those kids with their math homework and other homework.
And you know, at the primary level, K2, it's a little bit easier for parents because, you know, you're adding and subtracting.
That's where I'm
exactly. And then once they get in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we're trying to get them to think more algebraically. They're doing multiplication and division, but we're really getting them to think about what is the missing number, and that's algebra. You know, we don't tell them that.
Right.
You know, you're doing algebra. But if we can get them to think algebraically once they move into algebra in junior high, high school, then they have a little bit of a better foundation for that. Parents who don't really understand the math come to school, ask us, sit down with us at math time. That would be fantastic.
Great.
Come in and see how it's done.
That's a great invitation. I appreciate that. So moving on from the letter grade, how do you connect with your school and community? What are some of the things that you're doing so that parents and the community know what's going on there at Linden and what they can do to help?
Right. Well, the most important thing when I took this position, I told myself every day that I'm on campus, I need to be out front. When school starts in the morning, as kids are arriving, I'm out front greeting kids, opening doors, saying good morning. As staff come in, you know, how are you? How's your family? That kind of thing. Because I feel like the principal shouldn't be the person sitting in the office. It should be the person out on campus with the kids, with the parents. So I spend a lot of time out and about. With parents, we have a really strong PTO. I meet with them at least once a month. Peach jar flyers go out, text messaging, social media. We're connected that way. I invite all parents in. I know that one of the pieces of feedback that I received from parents last year was that they kind of felt like the school was our realm and they weren't really welcome. And so I wanted to turn that around and say this is our community, this is our community center, it's our school. So I love having parents in, and like I said, we have some parents who pretty much have a standing date. You know, every Thursday I'm there doing copies for a teacher, or every Tuesday I come in and I read with the small group.
Great.
So, yeah.
So you've got a standing invitation to parents to come and see you and be a part of the school.
Absolutely.
And the
And
happenings.
you know, I have parents call all the time and, you know, hey, I heard this was going on. How can I help? And, you know, I answer their call.
Great. So I'm interested in knowing, as the principal, and with all of your experience that you've had to this point, what are some of the areas that you can teach in teaching and in learning in the school where you can be a part of that and you can lead? Because I'm liking what I'm hearing about you being visible. You know, sometimes a leader sits in their office and isn't seen or heard from, and others are more active, and so I'm interested in that.
Well, I was teaching until May last year, so I have that connection still with the classroom, and I spend a lot of time in classrooms. When teachers have a question, it's usually, here's my answer. How can I help you to implement it? Can I come in? Can I do a model lesson for you? Can we write a lesson together? So I do a lot of that coaching that I did prior with my staff now. When it comes to professional development, that was one of my responsibilities as a coach, was providing professional development. So I'm doing that with my staff now, pretty much focusing on those math practices with my staff, because that's kind of our focus this year, is getting our math up. So I do a lot of that, the math instruction with my staff. I have a lot of resources that I share with them and show them how to utilize them. Stuff that they just haven't had the experience, haven't had the opportunity to see. So I just provide that for them.
Great. So what are you wanting the teaching and the learning to look like in your school, and how are you communicating that to your staff?
Well, as a teacher, I always believed that if my class was quiet, there might be something wrong. Like I wanted kids talking, because I knew that if they could say it out loud, they could write it on paper. I knew that if they could explain their mathematical thinking, they could show it on an assessment. So I really want teaching and learning to look like collaboration. I want it to be a group project. I want it to be, you know, the learning comes in, how do we get it out? And it's not always pencil paper. It can be a dramatic play. It can be a discussion about how I solved a problem. So that's how I think teaching and learning should look in the classroom. So that's what we do as a staff. When we come together as a staff, we talk it out. What are our ideas? How can we solve these issues? what do we want to do moving forward, and getting all the ideas out on the table and then kind of picking through them and finding out. Rather than me coming in and saying, okay, here's what we're going to do, that gives them more ownership of it. And honestly, it makes my job a little bit easier because then they take it on.
So I hope this doesn't, I hope I can explain this well, but kind of what I'm thinking is, you know what, I've always thought that when people got together, there was never a wrong question or anything like that, because from what someone might think is a wrong question can come an idea that can be innovative and be a solution.
Right. I mean, you might be thinking about something and I'm thinking about something completely different. But if you say something that sparks an idea in me, that's collaboration.
Right.
That's where that comes in.
Yeah, great. I love it. I love to hear that. And do you have that going on in the classroom? I mean, are the kids sitting there, you know, saying 5 plus 2 is 6, and another kid says, well, hold on a minute, you know, it's not 6. How'd you get there? And
Yes.
I mean, I'm hoping that, I mean, that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
We
you're
even
saying.
have hand signals, I agree with you, or I had a different idea. So it's never you're wrong. It's, you know, I get you, but I had a different solution to the problem.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'd love to see that.
They're sharing it. Come on out.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. How are you, I mean, I'm interested in your leadership style. How are you building leadership there at the school?
Well, we're meeting as professional learning communities. My master's is in professional learning communities.
Oh, okay.
So that's a biggie for me. Getting together and sharing our best practices. How did you get your kids to meet that standard? My kids didn't meet it. How did you do it? And getting together and talking about it. And hey, can I come watch you teach a lesson? Can I borrow some of your resources? Teaching for a long time has been a closed door practice. And it needs to be an open door practice where we can come in and see each other teach and learn from each other.
So are you saying, like, one teacher, hey, I do it my way, leave me alone, I'm not going to tell you how I do it, and what we really want is we want those best practices brought out?
That has been the tradition in teaching, but it can't be anymore, because our kids, we need to be building the leaders of tomorrow. And we can't do that if we're just closing our doors and saying, you can't borrow my stuff, you can't, you know.
Yeah, we need a change in thought process,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah,
and the great thing is that the kids see that, and then they integrate it in their own life, because they're not seeing people say no, so they don't do it.
Right, which only opens them up for success, I believe.
Absolutely.
So yeah, great. Let's say, you know, let's look 10 years down the road. I mean, I hope we have you for 10 years at least.
So
we want you for that long. But, I mean, at the end of your tenure as principal at Linden Elementary, what do you want that school to look like? Well, if we go in there and we see your fingerprints everywhere, what are we finding?
Well, I would hope that the culture of collaboration remained, because like I said, that's how our kids are going to learn. And that's how best practices are going to be shared across the school. I would hope that it was an inviting place for parents to come in and where kids want to be. I mean, let's be honest, our kids have options, and I would hope that Linden is their first choice. That's what I would want.
Great. So I just want you to know that I've thoroughly enjoyed visiting with you.
Thank you. Me too.
Get to know you just a little bit better. And I'm excited about the things that I've heard. I hope that we have some parents who watch this and who take your invitation to come in, visit with you, be a part of the program, be a part of the community. Linden is a special place within our district, the elementary school, I mean, and there are so many good. We have so many good people in our schools.
Some awesome families out there, and the kids
we have
are pretty
great
awesome.
things going on.
They're great.
And so for that, I thank you.
Thank you.
Wish you luck. I would love the opportunity, maybe towards the end of the year, to visit with you again, see how things have been going, and maybe check in on some of the things we talked about.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Sounds
Thanks.
good.
I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us here on School Zone, and we'll see you again soon.